All right. It's Wednesday, not Friday. Happy Wednesday, everybody. And we are back with another episode of Learning Tech Talks, where we're exploring the landscape of learning tech, cutting through the fluff, and really helping you get the answers you need to do digital learning right. So today I'm joined by Yvonne Chen, and she's from Udemy for Business. I think I pronounced that correctly. And we're talking digital content, upskilling, all sorts of good stuff. If you're joining us live, go ahead, give us a thumbs up. Share the post, tagging somebody. I'm going to have to remember and go back and tag some people because I know I've gotten some messages saying, hey, make sure you tag me on this one, and bring in some people who would benefit from the conversation. Also, while you're at it, comment in, tell me and Yvonne, let us know where you're joining from. I'm in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Last time I was live, it was snowing. Today, it is in the 60s, which for us Midwesterners is extremely hot. And it is sunny out there in the curtain behind me. How about you, Yvonne?
I'm joining you from the Bay Area. So sunny Northern California typically, although today is a little bit overcast.
Okay. Yeah. But it won't last, right?
It won't last, no. We've had record heat actually over the last couple of days. And then finally we got a little bit of rain, which we need. And then hoping for maybe a little bit more rain today, and then it'll probably be sunny again.
Okay. Yeah. So I haven't lived in California, but I used to travel there a lot for work. I used to implement a lot of software in hospital systems out there. And one of the things I always liked about California was the consistency in temperature. For the most part, you have your ups and downs, but I did enjoy the weather.
There's a lot of consistency in the Bay Area. In Northern California, there's a lot of microclimates though. So you could drive 15 miles and all of a sudden it's 15 to 20 degrees different than where you are. So it's interesting.
See, learn something new every day. So I was not aware of that. Okay. So before we start talking about the learning tech piece, right? Your question. You've had some time to prepare for it. And everybody watching, comment in on yours too. I'd love to hear what yours is. But if I were to pull up, and I don't know if you listen to Spotify, Pandora, it really doesn't matter. Maybe you have a legacy iPod, whatever your jam is. But if I were to take it and pull it up, what song or songs would be in your recent played?
So recently played are a couple of things. So my team, we have a marketing hype list where everyone chooses their walk-on song. Essentially, if you were to walk onto a stage, what's your walk-on song? So I've been playing that, and there's a couple of songs on that playlist that I really like. There's Bad Boys for Life. And then there's Shoop by Salt and Pepper. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's my walk-on song.
Okay.
And, but other things we've been listening to, my husband and I really like Van Morrison. Okay. And then we've been listening to the Beatles too.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you got a pretty wide variety. Yeah. I gotta say, respect to that. So mine is too, right? Mine is all over the place. It's funny you mentioned Salt and Pepper because I actually I've been on a kick. It actually was by accident to give my 9-year-old a hard time. I was playing Push It. And anyway, it stuck. But then the algorithm started playing a bunch of songs that I went, what? This is the greatest playlist ever. So now I keep Push It in my playlist so I can do that. But if I were to actually pull up my most recent, it's actually super simple songs. And it's only because my 3-year-old daughter was with me when I was working out today, and she didn't want to listen to Metallica or anything like that. And so we ended up actually having super simple songs on, which is, I got to say, it's a little bit hard to work out to that, but we made it work. We made it work.
That's good.
Yeah. But wide variety similar to you. So, all right, well, let's transition over, and you're coming to us from Udemy, which for folks who may not know, there's Udemy, the consumer side, if I'm not mistaken, and then there's Udemy for business. And one of the big things before we really get into it, well, actually, first question is this: how do you define what Udemy is, even before we split the two? What is the category you would put yourselves in?
Yeah. So, I mean, at a very high level, I would say, we're an education technology company. But in one sentence, essentially, Udemy is the largest online destination for learning, and we're the largest online learning marketplace. And I can explain a little bit more about what that means. But
yeah, do it. Let's hear it. What largest online marketplace? But if there's more to your answer, go to that one first.
No, I mean, so we have Udemy was founded in 2010, and we were founded as a consumer first online learning marketplace. And so what that means is that we have essentially built a two-sided marketplace. Like if you think about Uber riders and drivers, Etsy, where you're buying and selling goods from, individual providers. We do the same thing, but we do it for learning content.
Okay.
And so we have basically amassed a large network of experts around the world that create really, really great content on, trending topics and skills. And then we deliver that content and we essentially help learners, people around the world discover and match with the right content that they may need at that moment of time.
Okay.
And so that's essentially what I mean by marketplace, where we're connecting instructors around the world and students around the world and helping them learn new skills and achieve whatever goals that they may be aiming for.
Okay. So there's two halves of it. There's the author kind of creator side of things where people are actually creating their content, their courses. And then there's the consumer side where you're aggregating, curating all of that content and then actually delivering it out to the consumer.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's on the consumer side. So then there's Udemy for Business, and you're coming from the Udemy for Business side of the house.
Yeah.
How do those two differentiate, or what makes them unique in the space?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Udemy for Business is our business subscription product that we offer to companies and organizations around the world. We also offer the product to governments around the world. And essentially what we do is we take the top rated or the best rated content on udemy.com on the consumer, marketplace essentially. And then we curate it further and we focus specifically on like professional skills, technical skills, business skills. We also have a personal health and wellness category as well, because that's very, very important for the workplace these days. And we curate that into a business account essentially. And so if you're a company, you get a unique account. That account includes all of these courses that you can integrate with your single sign-on technology, or you can do like API data integrations, and your employees can hop in and hop out whenever they want, take however many courses that they want, for however many times that they may need it, and they can access it on demand, online and offline, on mobile and on desktop. Okay. There's a couple other key differentiators, I would say, like when we look at the needs of people facilitating learning in a company or in an organization, there's a lot of different needs there. You need analytics, you need insights, you need data integrations. So we offer all of that through the business product. And then we also have like a course creation platform. So you yourself as a practitioner or a leader, you can create your own content, upload it and host it on Udemy as well. And you can offer that as part of your Udemy for Business product. And then we have other features too, learning paths and others.
Well, so we'll dig into them, right? Because that's part. I'm very curious in digging into all this stuff. But in summary with it, if I'm complete. Well, and actually I have a couple follow-up questions to that. Yeah. So if you look at the kind of, because your consumer marketplace is massive. I mean, massive. And sometimes in the content space, it is overwhelming when you're like, holy smokes, this is a lot. So you're curating that down. You're paring it down on the business end. I'm just curious, how do you actually do that? How do you decide? I mean, you mentioned top rated, but is there a specific process you follow to say, hey, this content is not relevant for the business? And what if a business says, you're not supposed to do double-barreled questions, but I'm going to. What if a business says, hey, this is something that maybe got curated out, but we found, and it is valuable? Is there a way to kind of go around that? So I'll toss those two over the fence.
All good questions. So, as you mentioned, udemy.com is massive, 150,000 courses on like anything you pretty much want to learn. When they say like there's an app for that, you can do the same thing and apply.
There's a course for that.
There's a course for that. Bread baking, gardening, like tech skills, certifications, like you name it, we have it. And that's been created by the experts around the world. So like over 57,000 experts around the world have created that content, and it's constantly being updated. And that course catalog essentially on the udemy.com consumer side is increasing all of the time. it's really important, like you said, for us to curate the best content for companies, because there are additional requirements that companies have. There's policies, there's, legal requirements that we need to take into consideration. There are additional quality metrics that we look at. And so, when a course is added onto Udemy itself, we have some basic quality metrics like audio quality, video quality. Does it meet those basic requirements? And then from there, we let the marketplace decide. So we want the learners around the world to actually tell us and rate and review the content and give us reviews on, hey, this was really, really useful. This helped me, get this promotion that I was looking for. This helped me learn this new skill. And that sort of increases the quality bar for specific courses. On the business side, so we look at 150,000 courses. There are a couple of ways that we curate it. Number one, we're looking at ratings and reviews. So we have like a threshold that we look at in terms of how many ratings, how many reviews this course has had. We want to make sure it's been vetted by a lot of people on the platform and that they've actually gotten results out of it. The second thing we do is we actually have a content strategy team at Udemy, and that strategy team is constantly looking at trends in the market, in industries. What are those top courses or topics or skills that people want in demand? They're also talking to a lot of our customers, attending a lot of events. And then that feeds into, okay, these are the courses and the topics that we need to make sure we cover as part of this business collection. And on average, every single month, we're adding close to 80 to 100 new courses into Udemy for Business. And then we're actually removing anywhere from like 50 to 70 courses every single month as well. Because we really, want to make sure that that content is as fresh as possible. So many times I've talked to people and they're like, oh, I still have this Windows 95 course, in this catalog. And, you can't have people searching, or you can't have that show up in search.
No.
So the curation process is something that
to be fair, though, the Windows 95, there might still be some companies out there using it. There might. I'm not saying, I'm just saying there might.
But, we take the curation process, like you mentioned, really seriously. It's core to one of our value propositions on the business side, that quality, making sure that learners have gotten results out of it. And then I would say like the last piece that we look at a very, very high level is the instructor's reputation. So, is the instructor responding to students in their Q&A section, quickly? Is the instructor updating their course on a regular basis? Those are things that we look at to also gauge quality. And all of those things essentially determine how we select content and bring it over to the business collection. To your second question of like, hey, what happens if, there's a course that a company wants and it's not part of the collection? So in those situations, we do work with those companies and we work with them to understand like, okay, what is it that you're looking for? More often than not, we actually don't have that situation come up very often, because for the most part, most of the topics and skills are covered in that 4,000-ish range. And then a lot of times too, companies are like, hey, I really want this, course on the latest like iOS version. We're like, hey, that's great. Like it's already going to be coming out like in the next like week or two. So we have like a roadmap essentially of content that we're also keeping track of. We have like relationships with a lot of our best instructors, and they're the ones who are like, oh yeah, I'm like getting ready to like release this new course on like this new, project management certification. We're like, this is awesome because there's an update.
You have a request that's coming or somebody's asking about it and you can stay in front of it. Okay. So there's a big relational piece between you and the instructors in many regards that helps keep that organic. Okay, so hopefully Dina actually, I had asked that question and then I looked and Dina had actually asked the same question. So hopefully, Dina, that answers your question about, the quality control side of things. On the topic though, I am actually just curious. On the consumer side, it makes sense to me on the business side, right? There's more of this, but on the consumer side, have there ever been instances where something's popped up and you've just said, nope. Like this is not even gonna be a course. Or on the consumer side, does it kind of say, well, you know what, the courses are the courses. It's only really at the business side where we're really gonna put that to the test.
I mean, I would say the consumer side, obviously, like, illegal content on,
How to hack into the
yeah,
something like that.
on illegal topics. And we have a whole stream of like legal policies
Okay.
that, is kind of like that first line of defense, essentially. Like that is not going to fly on Udemy. But, hey, if you want to create a course on like, there is a course on cat pumping, which essentially is like a therapeutic massage that you can give to your cat. So, we want that diversity on Udemy. It makes the marketplace stronger, and it allows for people, on the marketplace, and specifically, a lot of times people are looking for like hobby courses, or they're looking to like pass the time. Piano playing is like one of the top courses a lot of the time, if you look at the consumer data, which is really interesting. So we want that to thrive on Udemy. And, surprisingly enough, a lot of companies we talk to, they obviously don't want, people on their teams like spending time taking a cat pumping course. So that's not part of the business collection. But, that personal development aspect of like mental health, wellness, like yoga courses, and especially with COVID happening, we're looking at more courses that enable like work from home situations. So like virtual working, as well as, how do you balance things like family and work at the same time? So yeah. It's great that we have that breadth to choose from the marketplace on the consumer side. And then we can bring in what's relevant and what's trending, and make sure that companies and employees have access to all of that.
So on that topic, this is an interesting one. And over the years, I've gone back and forth with organizations and business leaders on this topic, because there is this fine line between, okay, I don't necessarily want employees spending all their time learning how to cat pump or, bake bread or garden. But at the same time, sometimes there are some interesting insights, and there is something about employees feeling like companies are investing in their development, regardless of what that development looks like. So I have to imagine there has to be a little bit of a balancing act that you walk with Udemy for Business around, okay, we may not throw in gardening. However, let's not limit this just to very specific stereotypical business topics. And I mean, I have to imagine there are some of those in there, correct?
There definitely are. And it is a balance. And I would say majority of the collection on the Udemy for Business side is in those, in-demand skill areas like Excel, analytics, data science, artificial intelligence, technology. And then especially on the soft skills side, emotional intelligence, how to deliver feedback, how to have a productive meeting, especially in a remote environment. So that makes up the majority, but we do have, I would say, a growing collection in that personal development category. And it is, it's one of those things where it's like, you want well-rounded employees. Yeah. You want to be able to, especially now, address the needs of the entire employee. That's not just like, hey, you got to know how to run a pivot table in Excel, but also like, I need to make sure that you're mentally strong enough to be able to, continue to do your job and lead a team. So it's important for us to make sure that we're taking that into account. Okay. And a lot of leaders, we've also seen a shift, like in the last couple of years that I've been at Udemy. A lot of companies, before were like, oh, I don't really want all this, personal development stuff in there. Now they are asking us for it. Like, hey, like we want more wellness courses and, balance courses, like posture. We have a course on like how to, like sit in your chair the right way when you're working from home. So a lot of those things, I think now companies appreciate more, and they recognize as being really, really important to maintaining productivity and engagement. Yeah.
Well, and it's a shift I've also seen. So and that's where my next question kind of goes into some of the trends in analytics you're seeing, which a couple questions have come in. So those of you who are asking questions, don't worry, I'm seeing them. I'll bring them in along the way, because one of the ones Boss asked about earlier was the analytics side. So I'll ask a couple follow-up questions on this. Is when it comes to that analytics, part of the reason I think some of those courses that may fall outside the realm of very tactical, hard skill things do add value tremendously, especially if you have the analytics behind it, because you can start to see into your organization, right? Where are some of the gaps? What are people hungry for? What are they not hungry for? Where do we have skills that maybe we didn't realize we had skills, that allows you to think about it from a broader talent strategy? So the question from Boss is, on the analytics side with the Udemy for Business, is that analytics built into the whole component so that you can get those insights and you can start to look at, hey, what's going on in the organization?
Yeah, definitely. So the insights piece is something that we continue to make stronger all the time.
Okay.
There's basic insights, obviously, around like, hey, consumption over specific time periods that you can pull. You can look at engagement on mobile versus desktop. And then we add in things like, okay, what are the top topics or courses that people are learning across your company? And then you can slice and dice that data by like groups. So you could say like, oh, the marketing team versus the engineering team, or the team in the Denver office versus the team in the San Francisco office. And so a lot of those give leaders the insights that they need to understand like, okay, here's what we said was important for our company to achieve this year in terms of what skills, this team or all employees need to know. Here's what it looks like in terms of actual engagement and usage. Here's how it breaks down by team. And then here are some of the other behaviors that occurred alongside that. And then they use that essentially to either coach managers or coach other, training and development professionals within the company, or they use it to like further emphasize or market essentially their learning and development programs internally, so that they do ultimately achieve whatever outcome it is that they're trying to achieve. Yeah. So we have I think like 4 or 5 different like analytics reports that people can look at, and we also look at it like from a funnel point of view. So if you look at how many licenses did you purchase? How many of those licenses are actually getting used today? By who are they getting used by? How do you want to send reminders to those people to make sure that they actually claim their license? How many people are logging in on a regular basis? How many minutes, on average? And then we also have a section that allows you to actually see like your top learners, reward them, have them be your evangelists within the company. Okay. So the data piece is really important. I would say my second answer to that is sort of, we take data very seriously at Udemy, and we use the data to make the product experience better. Okay. And so what I mean by that is because, if you think of udemy.com, the consumer side, 150,000 courses, over 50 million people around the world are learning from that content. And Udemy truly is a global company. We have, we cover hundreds of different languages, and we have students all around the world that are learning on Udemy. And so we use all of that data to actually see, okay, what are people in Germany learning, for example? What are the top 10 courses, skills that they're learning versus what is that look like compared to the US? And then depending on who you are as a learner, we want to make sure we're delivering as personalized of a learning experience to you as possible. So we use that data to like feed into essentially our backend algorithms to then recommend to you new courses, new topics, new skills.
I was actually, that was one of so what you said opened up a whole bunch of questions for me, but one of them was going to be, is that some of the things that you're either already doing today or continuing to do that is being able to use machine learning to help people understand and navigate this space, to be able to find things that are relevant to them or things that they may be, finding value in versus just, wow, holy moly, this is a library of stuff. On the licensing piece, then clarify if I'm understanding this right, or if I'm understanding it wrong. So if somebody has a Udemy license, they have unlimited access to the content. It's not a consumption by course, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're an organization, you purchase Udemy for business, you designate that you want, 5,000 people, these 5,000 people to get access to it. They can log in whenever they want, take as many courses as they want. They can take the same course over and over again if they want. You can download it offline for viewing if you're not traveling anymore. But before
I didn't travel before anyway, so
before
it's
maybe
okay.
commuting or traveling or on an airplane where the internet access was bad, a lot of people were
Yeah.
using their mobile devices to learn. So, yeah.
Okay. So on the topic side, because Julie asked this question, and I'm curious, in the conversations I have with learning leaders from across companies, I am starting to hear trends and things that really are big things. But I'm curious if you're seeing, from a data standpoint, what are some of the topics, in Udemy for Business that really are you seeing trends of things that are boiling to the top? What are those? And are there any that just surprised you that you went, oh, wow, I wasn't necessarily expecting
Yeah.
that?
It's really interesting. It changes all the time. And especially
Okay.
with COVID, it's changed a lot. So across Udemy, overall, huge increase in consumption and engagement with learning, right? On the business side specifically, we're seeing anywhere from 80% or higher increase in how companies and employees are actually using Udemy today. So there's a large increase in consumption. Major topics, I think topics that are probably ones that you guys would be familiar with. Telecommuting obviously started rising up to the top. That wasn't
imagine
there before. Virtual teams, I think, increased by 1,500%, which is crazy. Things like self-discipline, by another 200%. So it's really interesting to see the courses that people start enrolling in and actually start engaging in. And then I think one of the interesting ones, I think self-discipline is actually really, really interesting. We've also seen, I mentioned before, email writing, written communication, how to be an email ninja. We have that as a course, and that was always popular, but it's increased.
Especially with that title, right? I mean, that's a clip.
Good marketing right there. And then, typically on Udemy, we do see a lot of people coming to Udemy for technical upskilling, and that continues to be the case. But we've seen a huge surge in the demand for leadership skills and personal development and communication skills. So, people are really looking for help in managing and influencing others. How do I deliver feedback more effectively? How can I work remotely and balance that? And so that's been really interesting for us to see.
The human skills, I have to imagine, are really rising to the surface. On the hard skilled side, technical skills, I'm curious if not so much what are they, because that would be a conversation that probably everyone would go, that's so varied. But I would guess, and maybe this gets into your competitive differentiator, is with as many people as you have out there, as many different course content stuff that you've got going, would you say you've been able to kind of almost predict some trends in terms of things like that you're seeing bubble up? And I guess that gets to one of the questions Dina asked. It's one that, I personally always ask whenever I'm talking to somebody is how, because you are a content provider is a big part of that. Mm-hmm. It's not the only content provider, you're the biggest, but what are some of those key differentiators? And I guess that kind of ties into that ability to almost see the future, which is a little bit of the topic that we went on to. So that was a big question.
It's a big topic, and it's the reason why a lot of people buy Udemy. Okay. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future anymore. I think COVID definitely slapped all of us in the face with that. But even before COVID happened, you can't really you cannot predict anymore what skill is going to be the top tech skill or the top soft skill in the next 3 to 6 months, because everything is changing so quickly. In marketing, in my field of marketing alone, there are over 6,000 marketing technologies that you can use today for marketing automation and all these other things. And, just a couple of years ago, that number was 200. Wow. So all of the industries and job roles are experiencing something like that. And that's essentially why Udemy was created the way that it was. because we have these experts around the world that are incentivized and invested in creating the highest quality, most up-to-date content that they can, because when they do that, people respond, they buy their courses, they engage with their content, and both parties are rewarded ultimately. And these are people around the world that they have credentials. We have professors on the platform. We have people who teach at other, universities or schools. We have people who have made this their full-time jobs.
Okay.
But the best thing is that no one's required to have a PhD in order to teach like a web development course. We really want the market to decide and for the market to tell us. And so that's really, really interesting. And that comes through the ratings and reviews from our students. I think the instructors themselves, because they're so invested in their topic areas, whatever it might be, they are the ones that are being forward looking, and they're saying like, hey, actually, like I'm seeing, a lot of people demand this topic. And so I need to make sure that I update my course or that I prepare for this next thing. And so a lot of times on Udemy, you can come to Udemy and we will have courses on topics that you've never heard of before, and they'll start surging like 6 months later, or sometimes even a year later. Yeah. So that's what companies come to us for. They know that we're always going to have a course on a specific topic. If it's surging, it will definitely be there. Even if it's not surging yet, it is likely there already because of our instructor network and because those instructors are so good at what they do. And so I can't say that Udemy has a crystal ball. We don't, but
no.
We do have an engine. We have a marketplace that encompasses kind of all of the trends and demands that are happening, not just in the US, but around the world. And that ultimately feeds into what makes the business collection that we offer for companies so strong.
Yeah. Well, and when you hit on that, it was one of the things when so I'm familiar with your product just from my own personal use, but also, as I was talking to you about being on the show, or the team about being on the show, it is a unique component of it in that to some degree as an instructor, it's almost like playing the stock market, right? It's in some ways, it's like you're incentivized to be ahead of the curve and to stay ahead of the curve, because if you make the right bets, you keep your content on the forefront. It's a smart investment because now you're driving traffic to your courses, which is ultimately what you want. So there is an incentive to be the best, the most up-to-date, the highest quality of stuff in order to be on the front end of that curve.
Definitely.
Okay. Yeah. So then on this one, just to kind of level set from a course so then before I go to that, on the instructor side, are there requirements to be an instructor? Are there some baseline requirements? So literally anybody could create a course.
Anyone can create anything. And then, we have those content quality policies and rules that we put in place, and then additional curation metrics that we take into account to ensure content quality. Yeah.
What's interesting about it is, and I've been on different settings where the argument's gone different ways. But what's interesting, and something I think our industry can learn from the model you've set up, is sometimes when it comes to internal stuff, right? I think about when we try and curate content on the inside, sometimes there's this concern of, well, we don't want to let everybody create content, because what if they create content and it's not perfect? My personal perspective on that is, so be it. And the times I've actually pulled that off, the people actually are better at policing. I mean, you have to have some basic guidelines, and it sounds like that's right where you've established, look, we're not going to let bad, incorrect stuff in here. There's just a baseline stuff. But as long as it meets that baseline, let it happen. And then let's let the market tell us what's good and what's bad, and use that as valuable insights instead of trying to make everybody do everything a certain way. So it's interesting you've done that at such a huge scale.
We've done it at a large scale, and it only works if you build off of that strategy throughout all of your product strategy and your business strategy, right? So if Udemy were to stop there, that wouldn't be enough. We also are looking at, best content rises to the top. Best content appears in the search results, at the top, if you think of like Google search.
Yeah.
Way. And then the way that we help people discover courses and like search for content is heavily influenced by, that back-end algorithm of like, okay, how good is this course? How relevant is this instructor? And then we're also tracking trending topics and skills. So 50 million people on the platform searching for things all the time. We actually track all of that. What is search behavior? What topics are they looking for? And that actually goes into a tool that we offer to instructors. It's our Marketplace Insights tool. And it essentially allows any instructor to log in and they can essentially search for certain topics that they might be interested in teaching something on, or they might just want to see like, what are the top searched terms over the last, X period of days. And that also gives them data to be able to say like, okay, if I'm going to create a course on Udemy, looks like this new like Django course, or, people are really looking for like how to create an engaging, interactive meeting remotely. So
so for the instructors, there's some insights for them too. Like, hey, if you're going to do something, here are some of the things that we need to do. It's an interesting, and I have to imagine it is disruptive in the sense you're really democratizing content creation. And the thing I'm curious, and I don't know if you have a specific example, but I think of it, an analogy that comes to mind for me is I have to imagine there have been some like diamonds in the rough, right? A person that didn't have all the big cred, they didn't have the big background, and turns out they're incredible on a topic that just blows up, that nobody would have ever found them. Nobody would have ever realized that they were such an expert or so fantastic at teaching something. Have you seen any of those where you went, wow?
Oh, there's so many. And it's amazing. I think that's one of the things that I love so much about Udemy is the stories of the instructors. I mean, the student stories obviously are like very inspiring, and the company stories that we see are very inspiring. But because we're talking about instructors right now, their stories are so inspiring. So many instances of these diamond in the rough instructors who nobody had heard of before, and they blew up on Udemy. And they're some of the most gifted instructors that I've ever seen. And so I can name a couple, but like Jose Portilla is one of our top like technical instructors. Kirill Eremico is another one. You've probably never heard of them before. They don't teach at, Stanford or Harvard, but they've taught millions of students around the world how to program or how to get certification in a specific, AWS certification, for example. Okay. Learning data science for the first time. And so there's so many of those types of stories. We have instructors on our platform that are brain surgeons that also, teach a Udemy course on the side as well. We have, instructors on our platform that have made enough money to buy their fiance a wedding ring, so it ranges.
Cool story, yeah.
And obviously the top instructors, like they've made companies out of it now. They've said like teaching on Udemy is my thing to do, and I'm going to expand the topics and the skills.
That's how they built their brand to some regards.
Yeah.
Okay.
The students look to them, our learners are looking to them, and companies are also looking to them, for their expertise. We actually showcase them in a lot of our webinars that we do for Udemy for Business. A lot of events that we do, we'll bring them on stage to talk about certain topics and make sure that we're educating, L&D leaders, HR leaders, IT leaders on like, hey, here's what a top expert in their field is seeing, and here are the trends, and here are the skills that he's saying or she's saying people need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool, because again, there's nothing, being an expert in your field is not necessarily right. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to do, but it's also amazing how sometimes it's people that don't have all the credentials, all the things, that sometimes can just tell the stories and share things in a way that's completely different, that resonates with other people. So the ability to kind of have both of those and bring those together and say, hey, it doesn't really matter who you are, bring your expertise and share it with the world, and let the world let the world tell you whether you're really an expert or valuable.
And you think about like, how do you often learn things in the workplace? You know, you turn to the person sitting next to you and you're like, hey, you're really good at this. Can you help me? And so it's really that same intent where you're allowing people who have knowledge to share, to be able to share that with the world, and then help, allow the world to gain access to that. And that's essentially what we're doing.
Okay. Well, and then I've got a very tactical question, and I'll jump to something else here. But I think Julie asked a question. I think we answered it, which she'd asked, do you find most of your courses are created by SMEs or L&D professionals? It sounds like it's really everybody. I mean, do you see trends in terms of who's creating it, or for the most part, is it all over the board?
No, I mean, it's really anybody. I mean, a lot of times the people that find the most success on the platform are people who have deep expertise in a particular area. And so, a lot of times those are subject matter experts. But, as I mentioned, I think previously, as an L&D practitioner, you can add courses to your own proprietary instance of Udemy for Business for your employees to access themselves. If you want to also create a course on Udemy, for example, our VP of Learning and Development, Shelly Osborne, she's awesome. She's created a lot of courses that are for Udemy employees, but we've actually made them available for free to anyone to take content or courses on those topics, like delivering feedback, working from home. And so she's an L&D practitioner that has now made her courses available on udemy.com as well. And before she was charging for them, but now, with COVID, we're offering them for free for anybody. So there is a lot of opportunity here. And sometimes people just want to do it because they enjoy teaching and they enjoy interacting with learners around the world. And sometimes, people are looking to start a new career. So it really varies a lot.
And that's what before we went live, we talked about this a little bit, was the fact that, right now, I think a lot of people in L&D are going through a little bit of an identity crisis as this whole digital transformation was happening, but then just got completely blown up with COVID. And I do think it's a unique opportunity for people to put the skills that they've crafted over the years and apply it in a different way, and honestly, to some regards, to make it be a personal benefit for your own personal brand, things like that. So definitely some creative things. On the very tactical, on an instructor side, do you pay to be part of the platform? Or is it a pay for consumption of things? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah. So on the instructor side, you add your course to Udemy, you set a price. And then depending on how many on the main consumer marketplace, people have to buy courses individually. So you buy, this course, and each one's priced individually. And so if you're an instructor and you actually opt into Udemy marketing, so we market a lot of these courses to the 50 million plus, students on the platform. And if you want to get visibility, you can opt into our marketing services. And in that case, the revenue share is pretty much 50-50. So the instructor gets 50% of any sale. Udemy gets 50% of any sale. As an instructor, you can also opt out of any marketing, in which case most of that sale dollars goes directly to you. We take out some.
You got to build your audience.
Like that, but otherwise, it goes to you. So it's not consumption based at all on the main marketplace. It's just pure revenue. How many sales do you have? And then we take a percentage.
Okay. But there's not a cost to entry. Like, hey, if you're going to create courses, we just charge X amount to create a course.
No, I mean, minus the cost, I would say, is the time that you spend to create it.
Any resources you need to actually create content. I mean, there's that whole component, but the platform actually has the tools to develop the course.
Yes.
I mean, you got to have some other stuff.
We have the course creation platform that all instructors use to create their content and add it to Udemy. And that's where they can add in, it's all video based, obviously, but you can add in supplemental materials. You can add in quizzes. You can add in exercises, articles that you want people to read. And then we offer that same course creation platform to companies.
Okay.
So companies can use the same.
Okay. And then on the company side, so if you have the ability then to create courses? Because then this moves from just a content hookup to actually also potentially a content creation tool that you can use internally to be able to do that, which opens it up to a new category, I think, in terms of the ecosystem. But on top of that, then that if you create internal content, because I'm sure from a compliance standpoint, there's going to be people that are like, what? We can't have our content out there. It's not going out to the marketplace.
No.
Okay.
It's proprietary to that particular organization only,
Okay.
And to those employees. So it's completely, totally separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the one other question I have, so obviously if you can create your own content, then you can create it can be as customized as you want if you can develop it yourself. I am curious, one of the things I find with content is there seems to be this kind of push of, well, can we customize it? Can we not? Is it too off the shelf? Things like that. Since the instructors really own the courses, that content belongs to them. So how have you seen organizations where maybe they say, hey, this is a really good piece of content, but we also want to maybe augment it with something else to really give it our own company? How are people doing that?
Yeah. A lot of companies use the content as part of a larger learning initiative or learning program. So a lot of companies have like badges programs where they're using Udemy content primarily to certify people and get them to attain specific badges or badging levels. And then they also, add in obviously proprietary like company content into that as well. I mentioned earlier, like our learning paths feature. With learning paths, you can actually mix and match different parts of courses together. And then you can also add in outside materials. So if you have maybe a PowerPoint presentation that you've developed internally that is part of this new, remote working learning path that you're putting together, you can add that into the learning path. If you want to link out to an article that you read, you can also, even though it doesn't live on Udemy, you can still host it in a learning path on the Udemy for Business side, and then your employees essentially can go through that specific path. So there are ways in which we allow people to mix and match, but we do typically find that companies use the Udemy course as a foundational like skill course.
Yep.
And then
as part of a broader thing. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Then one other question came in from Dean, and then I have one that I'm curious about just from a strategic standpoint. But she was curious from a technology standpoint. Is the technology you use, is that something Udemy built, right? Is this kind of your own kind of tech platform that you've built to meet the needs of this unique marketplace?
Yeah, we've all built it in-house. So obviously the marketplace model has been built in-house. The Udemy for Business platform, the course creation platform, the data, the insights tools that we offer, all of that has been built in-house.
Okay, cool. So you guys, it's all you. So on the ecosystem standpoint, actually, let me do this one because I want to get to this question, and then I've got the other one, and if we have time, is when it comes to content, I think sometimes where content providers get a bad rap is there's this assumption on the L&D side that, or just corporate wide, we buy this content, we plug it in, and magically, right, everybody's developing, they're all doing this stuff. And that's just not a reality. I mean, you're going to have your percentage of people that just naturally do that. They're just constantly learning, they're constantly developing, things like that. But I have to imagine there's some expectations that people may have. And one of the questions that came in earlier was like, how are you marketing this to companies? So I'm really curious, how do you balance that as an organization to set realistic expectations for people while at the same time showing them the potential of what could be? Because there's tremendous potential behind it, but that doesn't just happen by flipping a switch or signing a contract.
If you build it, they will come. They'll come, but in order to get the real outcome.
The field of dreams analogy, I think that's going to be a new L&D trend, right? It comes up a lot.
It does. The most successful partnerships that we have and the most successful customers that we are fortunate to service are ones that are truly invested in learning and development, and they're trying their best to tie learning and development to business strategy and business goals. And so the way that we do this is we're working on additional product features to build in more robust, like outcome-based metrics to help L&D professionals. The second major way we do this is through our customer success team. And so, a lot of customer success teams at companies, I think, are more like support oriented, like, hey, I had this technical glitch.
This course isn't working, or things like that.
We have a support team for that. Our customer success team is very focused on partnership and strategy. So when you sign on as a customer, it's always, or even before you sign on as a customer, it's what are your needs? What are the problems you're trying to solve? What are the programs that you're trying to run? And we will come up and work with you on a partnership strategy to, create the ultimate onboarding plan, launch plan, adoption plan to help you achieve those goals. And so it's the strategy partnership there, I think, that ends up creating a lot of amazing results. We did an ROI report study with IDC, and a lot of those companies, obviously they're outlier companies for sure, but they're companies that invested and partnered with us in the most productive way possible. And they saw, sometimes over 800% in just in ROI. So productivity, time savings, cost savings, all of it.
And that's things you do. That's part of the model that you bring with that. Is it's not just you're bringing that to the table with that.
Yeah, you sign on as a business customer, and you get a dedicated customer success manager, and that person is there to really work with you every step of the way to help you see as much success out of this product as possible. We do a lot of marketing things too, but the marketing things we do are more at scale. So, my team will sort of step in and help with some marketing onboarding programs, delivering course recommendations to you that you can deliver to your learners, education of new product features. We'll do that in mass as well. But then your customer success manager is really there to kind of tailor the experience to you, make sure that they understand what your needs and use cases are, and then address those.
And is that something, because one of the things I think that a lot of times when people are looking to where we want to build a development culture, whatever you want to call it, is the amount of time that goes into that, right? This is a marathon, not a sprint. And with that, is that support there throughout? So because inevitably, right, it may start strong here, business environments might change. You may have a specific set of goals you're trying to achieve that you didn't have before, and now you're saying, hey, our strategy's pivoted a bit. Is that support a sustainable thing that's in part of it?
Definitely. I mean, we want to maintain a close relationship with all of our customers because the feedback is really important to us. We also do a lot of product beta programs. So, we want to give customers first access to give us feedback on a new product feature we might be testing out. And getting that level of information and feedback is so important as inputs for us as we're kind of advancing and developing our product and our services. It would be, I won't say that we have, that day-to-day interaction with.
Well, yeah, right.
You got other things.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But we do executive business reviews.
Okay.
We share with them more data and insights that they might not be able to pull on their end, but we can pull on our end.
Okay.
We have
how about topic wise, if you're hey, here's a specific thing, can you help us figure out what is the content that really can help us drive that behavior?
Yeah, we do a lot of customer advisory boards. So we do a lot of customers connecting with other customers too, is something that we love to facilitate. And we also do a lot of events in that sense. So bringing the community together, you talk about a specific, topical area that is top of mind for you. So when COVID first happened, it was okay, how do I switch to a completely remote new employee onboarding experience, and what does that look like? So we hosted, an event around that and a discussion. So it's definitely something that we learn so much from our customers. And we also want to take all of those learnings and then package them and deliver them to the rest of our customer base as well. And that comes through in a lot of the programs that we do, a lot of the marketing programs that we do, a lot of the events that we do.
So there really and I guess I could have retitled the show had we had this conversation ahead of time, right? But this really it's content, it's the technology behind it, but it's also community. I mean, what I'm hearing you say is the community, both within the instructors, within the organizations that are working with you. You're building a community around this stuff that's not just with this one organization or here's this piece.
Yeah,
Okay.
that network.
Okay.
That network is so important. Because if you do everything in a silo and you don't actually like talk to people and connect to people and hear what their true needs are, we're not doing our job. We don't like to see ourselves, obviously. I don't think any vendor doesn't like to see themselves as just a vendor, but like really, like we're not just a vendor. We are here to invest in long-term relationships and partnerships. We're here to help bring learning forward, and especially in a time like this where digital transformation, future of work, all of those conversations have been accelerated to a new level. It makes something like Udemy and the partnership that we have with companies, I think, even more important.
Okay. Well, I don't think being a vendor, right? And I see what you're getting at, right? You don't want to think yourself as just a vendor. This is something, and it's part of why I started this show, is the fact that I feel like the vendor thing, it gets a bad rap, like, oh, vendors, they're over. And there is a little bit of an us them in the industry. I don't think there needs to be. I think vendors acting the way you're talking about, that's a strategic partnership. The vendor side, yes, you're a vendor in that you're providing a service to us or a product to us, but when you're doing it right, that's just what, to me, a vendor relationship should look like regardless. It's not a bad thing. And I think there's tremendous opportunity for us on the practitioner side to do more, to engage and partner with vendors in that capacity.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, like you're spending this money, you spend all this time evaluating providers, then you spend money, you sign on the dotted line. A lot of times, that's the end of the relationship until,
something goes wrong.
Something goes wrong or the company pings you for renewal.
Yep.
But that's not what we're here for. Like we want to do more than that. And that was how we built this business and the team. And so that's what's ultimately going to make the relationship
make it work.
Yeah, make it work.
Yep.
So.
And I think fundamentally the things you talked about at the end here, there's two mindset. It's one mindset shift, but it's one mindset shift that I see it playing out in two ways. One, it's changing the mindset you have to vendors, right? It's not just a consumer, right? We consume and that's it. And until we need to consume more of that's a fundamental mindset shift. But it also goes back to what you talked about of taking advantage of that community piece. Requires shifting the mindset of I need to step out of just my silo and looking at the day-to-day of what we're doing and saying, hey, we shouldn't fear collaborating outside our company walls and our boundaries. In fact, we should embrace it. And that's one of the big trends I'm seeing with technology, from a democratization of a lot of things. It's actually breaking down a lot of silos and giving us a lot of insights, which for some is terrifying, right? Some people are a little nervous by it. To me, I think it's a huge opportunity.
It is.
Okay. Well, I told you we would run out of time before the other question I was going to ask, and maybe if you can do the 30-second answer to this one, is from a integration standpoint. And like I said, the very quick way of doing it, because otherwise this could be a whole nother episode in and of itself. But when organizations, how are they doing it at a high level? Are they integrating it into their existing ecosystem of things? Are they kind of just bouncing it out? Is it its own thing? Very quickly.
Very quickly, depends on size of company. Okay. So smaller, mid-sized companies, Udemy is typically the sole provider and the like main avenue in which they're delivering learning and development. For a lot of larger companies, you have multiple providers. And so it's part of a larger ecosystem where we integrate then with like your LMS, if that's the strategy. But we've also had a lot of large companies that didn't find success in the LMS because people didn't go there for learning, and they just kept going to like Udemy on their own. Okay. So they separated it out. So it really depends. But I would say it depends on company size and then your strategy.
Okay. And I won't dig into the technical stuff. So don't worry. And we're at time anyway. So honestly, this has been fantastic, Yvonne. I appreciate you being here. It was great, even just for myself to just dig into this a little deeper than I had in the past. And I appreciate, your transparency and the conversation. I think we answered all the questions that came in throughout. If not, definitely we'll comment and I'll tag in people along the way if there's any other ones, or if people are watching or listening after the fact, you can always tag us and things like that and we'll chime in. But this has been fantastic. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of your afternoon, and thanks for being here and thanks for the time. Thanks everybody for watching too.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Christopher. It was a great conversation.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.